I was reading YouTube titles one day, and one was about if Rango has any objective, or he even wanted to be working in the Stomach Inc. And that remind me a lot about one of the theme that there's in Senkaiger, that is that being evil is lame. And that's mostly is because more of the Tojitendo is basically a bunch of empty people that doesn't know what to do with their life, and they don't find joy in anything that they do. Especially Lord Bokuaus is especially a very boring person that has all this power and just going with the flow. And it really looks like that this is just the Stomach family is a sort of flavor of that. Meanwhile, their Tojiteno were a bit more overly fascist. These guys are more of the oligarchy flavor of the same thing. So basically, they just arrive to this position and they maybe doesn't want to be there, but they don't know what to do with their life, so they just perpetuate the system. And changing the system is apparently what Shoma at the end he wants to do, because he can see the amount of pain that the system currently in his way is producing. Meanwhile, his siblings for some reason cannot see that, and probably the only reason is because they really don't have internal wall for themselves and enough creativity or very interesting of people to figure out that, yeah, this is not a really good thing to do. At the same time, unlike Senkaiger, Gavv is not a comedy, so you cannot find comedy out of making fun of these guys that are just empty shells with nothing interesting going on. We're gonna find what's going on with Rango, maybe, but there's a high possibility that he's just going with the paces and he's evil because there's nothing else for him to do than just that. We need to talk about the theme in Gavv, because the theme in Gavv, I always explain it as the decisions you take when you were sad, because that's the thing that all the characters have in common in this show. Mostly they suffered a terrible loss, and they made a stupid decision. Usually it's a stupid decision. At least Shoma decided that he needed to protect the thing that his mom liked it the most, I guess. I suppose that I think that was the decision that he took. But all the characters in this show, again, suffered a loss and took a decision. Now, the next step to that theme is to be responsible about the action your decisions make you take. And I was thinking that G was going to come back and Shoma has to be responsible about the fact that he destroyed his sister. After all, and no matter if it was in self-defense and it was justifiable, he did it anyway and caused a tremendous grief. But Jibu was back and he made a bad decision, and I'm like, okay, maybe we're not going to get this. But then they decide to be a bit more responsible about the mess he left behind, and I'm like, maybe we're gonna have that. Maybe Shoma is going to convince Jibu that the main issue we're having is the system that perpetuates this whole thing, or the dark tracing itself. Or maybe it's going to be the catalyst for the final arc, something that will happen with Jibu. Who knows? But I truly believe that the show goes to Shoma having to be responsible for something he did after he took the decision because he lost his mom. And I think that's the end game. He'll consider Rango dead the moment the series ends. But beyond that, this surprising lack of foresight by just believing he was too strong to fail in certain way makes Rango a pretty genius character in the show, as how prominent he is. You expect him to be, important. but he seemingly dies almost at the same time he presents himself as a threat. And even more important, he became a cog in the machine just by believing he couldn't be one. He became a victim of the system, believing it was impossible for him to become that. We need to change the system territory, as every single individual in the show who believes they are over the system or actually protected from it or even playing it is going to land one by one without noticing the system is the one playing them. But I believe if they maintain the man dead, because who knows, this is probably one of the most genius ways to demonstrate the system doesn't care for anyone because it's there to perpetuate itself in all the ways possible. At the same time, they are definitely going to try to make a contrast between the support network Choma has built by being his caring self and how doing the right thing, no matter how difficult it is, does make a difference, even so slightly. So yeah, bombshell at all. I just know this can get worse. But oh my god, slow clap for Junko Komura and whatever will allow her to do this. Or whoever had the idea to do this, not necessarily is here, but oh my god, that was great. Glota's demise will hit different, because Lango is already dead. We know Glota is super strong, and she's also know that, and that's the issue. She deep down knows she's a victim of the system, but she refused to accept it, because she's strong. Unlike Lango, who was set up as almost as a complete surprise, we'll see how Glota keeps going to the deep end, but she just refuses to accept defeat. She's not weak. She will not bend to either side, but that will be what destroys her. Being unwilling to accept that you were damaged and you were done wrong, because to strong people, that thing doesn't happen, right? Right? That only happened to the weak, right? She has feelings she doesn't want to accept because the system just thrown her to the wayside. She's not useful anymore. And no matter how strong you are, if you are a useful idiot, you aren't worth the effort anymore. She's convincing herself she doesn't need help because she's strong and doesn't need your pity. Because again, that's just for the weak. And that's why she's weak. And that will be her end. Please, remember that asking for help doesn't make you weak. You need help because you have been strong for a long time and your being is asking for rest. Take a moment to think, ask the people you know. Do not fall for this mentality because needing help sometimes is only human. So he wasn't dead. Neat. I need to give a giant apology to the people doing Gavv. Not really because I didn't think they knew what they were doing, but because I was suspecting they were going to change theme for the second part. But they found a way to force the original theme into the bad guys anyhow, and I kinda love it. Even the fact that it's slightly implied that Lango kinda faked his own death for almost on purpose. I always suspected the theme is what you do with loss, and now we're going to see what the most prideful of the characters will do. They still believe they are the strongest and that the strengths make right, and got stripped of what they think is right for them. The difference with Shoma and the other riders probably going to be that they don't want to topple the system that causing them so much pain, but to be on top of the system. You know, being them the ones who causes the pain. We'll see if this works, but for once I'm actually excited for the less interesting characters of the show being thrown out of the comfort zone and now having to react. My initial impression of them isn't feeling for false. The thing is, these guys are actually having issues for once, and we'll see what they do. It's time for you know what to hit the fan. Let's go! Gavv just reminded me of something Senkaiger also does, which I love. It's when the character have things unsaid. What I mean by that is stuff about the character that inform how they act and how they relate to each other, but never gets elaborated. In that way, if it eventually gets elaborated, it makes sense. And if never gets, it gives a bunch of texture to the show and to the actions and to the relationship of the characters. For example, Sachika talks in a Japanese Gyarokude way, hinting that maybe in the past she was a bit of a rebel herself. Then Hanto called her something the fan subtitles interpreted as press, which is, by the way, how leaders of Japanese delinquent are called. Kinoye's Janma title was president, for another example, meaning Hanto and Sachika knew for each other from way back, and that Sachika was basically the leader of a mix of a delinquent Gyaru group, and then something happened, and that's why she has Happy Party now. Also playing while she was ready to grab a fucking shiny bat to crack some skull in a moment notice. This is relevant to the story? No, that's why we know nothing about this, and the show doesn't call attention to it either. But it helped to make the world a bit bigger than we know, going beyond the Granut situation, and to give it a bit more texture to the show at hand. Give the characters some history to make their action interesting, but you don't have to tell us. You can keep things unsaid. I don't want to say dark and light because those things have some baggage attached about good and evil, which is really not, the point, but still. At the moment of writing this, Gavv is about to finish, but I need to talk about this. I tried to get into Kamen Rider some time ago, and I just couldn't. And I say I was going to start watching it again if the scriptwriter of my favorite Sentai season, Tsuoyer, Lupat, and Senkaiger, was going to write it. Lo and behold, Yuko Komura was revealed to be the scriptwriter for Gavv, so I have to watch it. And I really believe she did OD herself. I still believe Senkaiger is a tad bit better than Gavv, but the great thing to me is the fact that these two shows are roughly about the same, thematically, with a slight difference. Gavv is a sad show about protecting the family you found on the wall you call home, while Senkaiger is a happy show about protecting the family you found on the wall you call home. Sashika is almost just Josh and Barjong, I swear. But that slight distinction is what makes the show so different. For example, while the characters of Gavv need to get a handle of their darkness inside them while fighting the bad guys, in Senkaiger, they need to fight the bad guy while holding this darkness inside them. All the good guys in Senkaiger has a tragic backstory, but it's never really elaborated much because it's not the important part, while in Gavv, it's the most important part. That makes all the themes in both series almost the same, but from a different point of view. I really feel that Junko Komura just gravitates a lot around these themes, but that doesn't mean it's not interesting to see the same ideas from a different angle. Kamen Rider have this little bit of darkness inside them, the tragedy of their creation of gentle souls, forced to fight for peace, while Super Sentai was forced by time to become the old school show, the show that carried that positivism about the future from Showa to the present, and I think Junko Komura just nailed that economy. So please, if you have finished to watch Gavv and have not watched Senkaiger or vice versa, please give the other show a chance if you can. I feel you're gonna go to be surprised. Kamen Rider Gavv! It's a great show. It's a great show! What do you want me to say? It's a great show. It had these metaphors in place, a happy theme in place. It had everything to be a great show. Despite that, I have a couple of complaints. One, sometimes the structure of not Monster of the Week, but Monster of the 2 weeks gets very distracted with the overall plot. It gets better in the second part of the show because the overall plot is not really about the riders. But when this overall plot is about Hanto and his relationship with you-know-who, it gets really confusing, and sometimes you are like, okay, this is part of the overarching plot. No, it's not part of the overarching plot, so why is 2 episodes about that? Now, okay. So I don't like that concept that they have of the Monster of the 2 weeks. I really believe that we should have a Monster of the Week so we can have time to actually understand what we have to pay attention and what we not. But at the same time, that just means that we have episodes of 1 hour with an overarching plot. And I think they should do that instead of just having episodes of half an hour and believing that their thing is not going to be confused. Head is not doing that so far, but there are just 2 episodes, so I really don't know what they're doing. But that's the only complaint I have about Gavv. You can see all the other videos about theme, all the other videos about what I really truly believe about the show, because this is really the only complaint. It's a bit of the structure, which is imposed, apparently, by the production. But Other than that, it's a great, great show. Go watch it. And at the same time, congratulations to everyone that just nailed a goddamn ending that made me cry. One single tear, but they make me cry. It was a great show. It was a great show.